This is Glambition Radio, episode number 263, From Chinese Roots to the American Dream, with Chesapeake Bay Candle creator Mei Xu.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go. Happy August. And by the time you listen to this, I will have turned the big 5-0. I remember feeling that would be ancient, like I would be dead or all wrinkly. You know, I don't know. Just growing up, that seems so old. I have to tell you, it feels amazing. I mean, my body needs some more maintenance, but this next decade, excuse my French, but I'm telling people it's a decade of ZFG, zero marks given, because there is so much liberation in knowing what you stand for and being okay if some people don't resonate with that. It's such an incredible place to be and feel. And I really feel, truly, this is going to be my best decade yet. So thank you for being with me on this wild ride. As one of my friends, Chris Plackey, who's been on the show, she says, as we're entering the back nine, for a golf metaphor, as we're, crossing that 50, it's an incredible place to be. And I see so many women really just coming into their own in their 40s and 50s. It's where they are so sure of themselves and so certain of what their mission really is in the world. So thank you for your support. If you want to drop me a birthday note, Instagram's probably the best place. And I appreciate that. Quick shout out to 2 reviews my team pulled for me from Apple Podcasts. The first is from Matt's Mom, 2002. Inspirational and empowering. I love the variety of guests and topics that are featured in this podcast. Glambition is one of my favorites ever. It's informative and relatable to the audience and leaves me feeling excited and empowered. Allie projects tons of confidence and assurance to her listeners. Looking forward to the new season. Thank you. And then Melody's roll call says, exclusive real women. The lineup of women is phenomenal. Conversations are real and really inspirational. Allie's voice has the perfect tone to be authoritative in a gentle, serious way and infectiously kind. I'm going to steal that. That's fantastic. Thank you, Melody. I enjoy exposing myself to women like these who are changing the game of life. Awesome. And if you want to change your game of life, make sure you've checked out my event that I'm having here in Phoenix in November. It's November 3rd and 4th, and we are gathering a group of women like no other. Now, you don't have to be at 7 figures to attend, as in to join my trust, but this event attracts such a high level of woman entrepreneur. Naturally, you'll be blown away just by being in the room. I've been told that women walk out different. They are recalibrated. They are fired up. They've gotten these incredible new downloads about their purpose and mission, and they are taking their game to the next level. Average revenues in the room at this point, with who's attending, is over 2 million. Just to give you an idea, but we don't require that you be 7 figures to attend. There are a few prereqs though. We want to make sure this ain't your first rodeo. So go to iconicwithallybrown.com. Aren't you craving an in-person event where we can have real conversations and be with each other and help each other activate that next level of power for our businesses and ourselves? iconicwithallybrown.com. And also, quick note, if you are interested in The Trust, which is my network for 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs, we have some incredible events coming up this fall and next spring. I'm hosting another informational call for those of you who would like to hear more. And I'll spend some time with you, walk you through everything The Trust includes, why I created it, why this is so needed, how it can help you, and you can decide if it's a fit for you. That is for women entrepreneurs, 7 figures and higher. So take a look at this page. It's jointhetrust.org/private invitation. And that call is going to be on August 19th. If you can't make that for any reason, though, my team would be happy to schedule a private call with you to walk you through the same information. Our guest today is creator of the Chesapeake Bay Candles. You've seen them for years. They've been in Target and all kinds of other retail stores. Huge, huge venture, but all started at her kitchen table. But I was mostly fascinated with Mei Xu's story of her earlier years growing up in China under the reign of Mao and how that then transitioned into a more market-oriented economy. And as the country opened up, she became excited about the prospects of future diplomatic opportunities and international business. And that led her to America and the quintessential American dream. Such an amazing story. And that's why I wanted to have her on. She has a new book out that is fantastic. It is called Burn: How Grit, Innovation, and a Dash of Luck Ignited a Multi-million-dollar Success Story. You're going to love this. Take some notes and get ready for a great conversation with Mei Xu. Mei, can you tell me where you are right now?
I am in the suburb of Washington, D.C., a place called Bethesda, Maryland.
And that is near where your company was based, right?
Yes, my company was right about 15 minutes away up in Rockville, Maryland.
Okay. So many questions I want to ask you, and especially as I've been going through the book, which is called Burn. I love one-word titles. I was curious, did you come up with that or did you have some help?
Well, having read many books with one titles, as a group between me and my book agent, Javelin out of Alexandria, Virginia, we all want to have a one word. And we want it to be a verb, not a noun or an adjective. And what came naturally is this word burn because of the candle relationship. So it turns out to be a wonderful way to summarize what I have been doing as well as what I've been driven by. So it's more about the burning passion that many entrepreneurs feel when they start and grow their business.
What made you decide to write the book? You've obviously had such a successful career. I mean, you've taken the company to just heights that people dream of. What made you want to share this whole story?
I really attribute this to my husband, who is actually a professor of economics. And when I stepped down from my CEO role in 2017, late 2017, I remember I started to brainstorm with him, what should I be doing? And he was the one that encouraged me to write a book because he said, it's going to help you come to the conclusion of what you want to do for your next chapter. And I remember saying to him, but who wants to read a book about a candle lady? I'm not Elon Musk. No one wants to make a candle. But he said, just try to listen to me because you don't want people to repeat the same mistakes you made. And the same success, you take it for granted, may be very enlightening to others. So you know what? After I wrote the book, I really think it's not only enlightening to other people, it's enlightening to myself. And just like we said before the recording, to our children, because I hope they too find a passion as immigrants, second generation, and carrying on that burning passion to do something with their life and make it a purposeful life.
Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about your upbringing and through coming to America?
Yes, I was a very unlikely entrepreneur in that I was born into 1967 China when we experienced Cultural Revolution. At that time, the only kind of entrepreneurship is probably where farmers are selling some of their vegetables that was not turned in for the organization they belong to. Usually it's the village organization that would take all their farm producers to sell. They have a little bit of that. And that's the only entrepreneurship that I can remember. But I was also very fortunate to live to see the two China, the one that was very, very singular and closed, and the one that became open after 1979 when Chairman Mao died. And the new leader, Deng Xiaoping, wanted to really open and reform and catch up in terms of economic development by allowing foreign capitals and foreign ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so during my teens, I started to be exposed in a very dramatic way. I was enrolled in a boarding school for diplomacy. So quickly at 12, I was enrolled to start exposure to not only language, but also culture, society, economics, history.
So this was an agenda that, so they created schools specifically for this to make you more worldly, to go out.
Worldly, and their thought process was that China has been so close. So they lost a whole 2-3 generations of diplomat that is well-versed in the language, but also well-versed in the history, culture, and, experiences. So what they were very smart at doing is to invest in 8 foreign language middle and high schools with an immersion training program. As you know, learning language is quite different than learning math or science in that you don't just command the logic. You really need to live it. You need to practice. You need to go to a restaurant and order the food or watch a movie, which is what we end up doing at the school. So we have foreign teachers with English as their native tongue from Britain to US, Australia. Remember, we always have a lot of accent from our teachers. But what's really amazing in 1980s is that we use American textbooks. So the books basically expose us to ideology and particularly cultural ideology and historical references that really close the gap between learning a language and understanding a country. So we were very, I was very fortunate to be exposed, and then still entrepreneurship was not so much taught, among many subjects that would be taught, until I went to Beijing and continued my diplomatic training in the Beijing Foreign Studies University. At that time in Beijing, in the late 1980s, 1985 to 89, when I was in college there, the country was full-blown. Full country has been open to reform and export and trade. And there are a lot of private companies around that time that started to show up in what I would call the Silicon Valleys of early Chinese sort of reform. That was in the 1980s, near the academic centers of China. We have about 200 universities in Northwest Beijing. I was in one of the school, but there are about 200 of them. And that's where the first batch of science-based, technology-based startups started. And I remember being very energized and extremely wide-eyed opened because it's so incredible to see students and their teachers starting to do something with computers, with all kinds of new ideas. But still, it has nothing to do with me until when I came here. And usually, I look back at my life, I would have been very happy working for organizations such as the World Bank, because I was working as their translator since I was at college because of my language background. And I was traveling around the country, accompanying the mission leaders from the World Bank to different parts of remote part of China that is receiving all the donations and aids. And I was a very happy camper because, allowing me to travel as well as feel useful and contributing to something very major. And I would have been happy to continue working there. But obviously, sometimes our dreams don't always follow a predictable path. Actually, they never follow a predictable path. So I graduated the year of 1989. Without having to go into detail, you probably remember what happened in 1989 in Tinanmen Square. And unbeknown to the public here is that graduating year, graduate in July, and all of us were sent away from major cities, particularly away from Beijing, so that there won't be any more protest. And that was the tough spot I was putting. Instead of working for the World Bank or other organization in Beijing, I was working in a warehouse in northern China. And the warehouse is very empty. It's only one person, that's someone that's supposed to be my boss. And we are staying there by ourselves. He's a guy that chain smoke and never really talk, not even in Chinese, let alone, practice English. Of course, he doesn't speak English. And I would stay with him for a year to watch basically minerals being picked up for export. And I stayed there for a month and realized that I've been spending 10 years very intensively learning language daily. And if I don't practice for a whole year, I would lose one of the most important things I have invested in.
Yeah, you had no one to talk to about the rocks, right?
The rocks or the minerals that are...
Because the man was not talking.
The man was not talking. There was no one else. And it was a very harsh life to think when you have been thriving in a major city and you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a movie theater, you can watch a dance and, catch some fun. All of a sudden that was taken away from you, and it was going to be for a whole year. So I resigned, and pretty much that is the end of my career for diplomacy, because that is part of the government track. And I decided to study here, came to the US to pursue my graduate degree. So I came in early January of 1991 after getting my paper together. And I went into University of Maryland to focus on mass communication because I really want to continue work for the World Bank. And I find myself very much hoping to be engaged continuously on the field where I can bridge the gap between the local population and the World Bank and the policymakers, because I see the need. But I graduated also in 1992. And if you recall, that was our first Gulf War with Iraq, because US is the main donor to the World Bank. When they are in war, sometimes they delay their contribution. And certainly there's a hiring freeze at the bank for that particular period of time. And I'm not considered a must-hire, obviously. I'm not a, professional sort of mission financial person. And so they told me, go look for a job. And a few years later, when things come back, we're going to hire you. So that's where things take another, sort of pivot. I have to find a job, and I couldn't find a job easily. So I found something that I can sort of spend time on. It's a job for a medical equipment company who's focused on exporting high-tech equipment to China, because they have such a thriving economy with very backward hospital facilities. So I moved to New York to help the company, but I wasn't happy because my husband, who came to US with me, was living in DC, and I was living by myself in New York to work. And I have to commute on the weekend. And it was just very uninspiring, because rather than letting me, help them with some marketing or more of the kind of talents that I can bring to their work, I was always asked to do some translation last minute. And I'm not very inspired. I don't find myself entertained or encouraged. So that's the moment where I think you probably have seen me talking about my relationship with Bloomingdale. I was put in an apartment near Bloomingdale, and I went there every single night because, for a girl that has nothing to do and not many friends, being put next to Bloomingdale is like an escape.
I remember that in New York City. I was there in my 20s and didn't know anybody. And I just loved walking around and going into stores and dreaming, right? Looking at things. So maybe one day I'll wear these things.
Exactly. I was making, I'm not kidding you, $19,000 a year. And I just remember after the rent and the fact that I have to take the train, back and forth, there was not much left. But I do see the difference between one bottle of fragrance to another, because people spray on me, and I can see that I'm very attracted to more of a men's cologne. I like the woodsy and the ozonic notes. I don't like the florals, and to me, it's very powdery, and it reminds me of all these old ladies that used to put, very strong powdery notes. And I just realized that I have a point of view, and it's shaped probably from just by having watched movies and read magazines, that I have a very clean and contemporary taste. And I really like the fashion floor on the second floor, which has the Donna Karens and the Calvin Kleins. And I remember walking in, seeing women's wear in black or menswear fabric, but it's cut with the feminine, shape.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing those women, in New York, women like to wear black, but very powerful suits and extremely attractive to me because I like that kind of aesthetics versus the very dainty and floral notes. And then I would walk up the stairs to the top floor, and it's usually the household product floor. And you will see very, very grandma-ish looking ornate furnitures that are very gilded. You see those wallpapers that are very small, tiny prints of flowers, and the colors are very heavy. And I keep thinking, why would this woman wearing a beautiful Donna Karan suits go upstairs and stay in a room that looked like a grandma's room when she goes home?
Right.
So I started to complain about this. It's just something I say to my then husband, David, on the phone every night. And one day he finally had enough. He said, why don't you quit? Why don't we start something in the home side? And China's export is really growing. Why don't we take advantage of this big overarching trend? So that's how entrepreneurial he is. He's very entrepreneurial. He didn't know exactly what we're doing, but he started to see my passion and my observation was so...
Yeah, he connected the dots. He saw it could happen. Let's explore.
Yes, and he was initially asking if I'm interested in fashion because I'm always interested in fashion. But I have a feeling that it's too late for me to get into fashion because I understand the marketing side of fashion. I see the setup for a brand, what it takes to promote. I just feel I'm not ready for that. But for some reason, I feel no one has understood to connect the dot in the contemporary women's wear, that aesthetics to what's missing in home. So I found that to be a gap that needs to be closed and should be closed. And I feel that was my initial strategy that proven later on served me very well. I have a very good vision. I'm very good at reading trends, but I'm particularly good at sort of forward thinking. Even now, when I talk to my husband, who's an economist, I'm always the one that look much further, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And that's the way I think. I'm wired that way. And I feel a lot of people like to analyze the moment or the immediate future. I prefer to look much, much earlier ahead. And it serves me well so that I feel sometimes I sound crazy to people, to be honest with you, when I ask them to do certain things. But then much later, they will say, wow, you were so right in wanting to do this. How did you come up with that? But I said, all the answers already there. They're already there for you to be identified. Some of us have a little bit more confidence to call it out. Some of us don't believe what we're seeing yet. And we want to wait for other people to sort of bring that up.
Yeah. Tell me about the evolution of the product then. So you started with the product sourcing it in China, correct? And then, but at the end though, you had a factory in Maryland. So tell us about that journey.
Well, this is something I'm so passionate about, Ali. You know that I have written a few things about manufacturing. So even in the very beginning, we started with my sister setting up a factory for me because no one think I'm a sound businesswoman. I was asking them to buy fragrant oil from the U.S. that I formulated with the vendor, ship them back into China, put them in a candle, and ship them back into the U.S. So most people say this is unheard of, and you are crazy that this is not going to be possible, that we have to import something and then ship it back. So only my sister is crazy enough to do it for me. So initially we did it, and we're the first candle manufacturer that produced fragrant candle. Everyone else is United States, like Yankee Candle, as you know, Colonial Candle, and European. And then as the anti-dumping rate for candles become 108% in 2000, before that took over the rate, I moved it to Vietnam when Vietnam was just opening to the US in 2002. And then in 2008, during the financial crisis, because of the way retailers demand lower retail prices and lower cost and more inventory because they don't want to buy inventory that may not be correct, I cannot react that way due to the rising labor cost in Asia and the time it takes to react from Asia is 8 weeks. That's how we moved manufacturing part of it back into Maryland. Again, out of everyone's objection, even David Wong's objection, because it's suicidal, the rate of cost is so much more here. But I'm pretty sure that we can improve the efficiency, and I'm counting on better quality.
Yeah. Your control makes up for the price, the cost, right?
Exactly. And the speed to market, right? Imagine seasonal product, pumpkin candles, only really sell for 6 to 8 weeks. If you see you're short on pumpkin candles and if you want to react in Asia, you don't even have time to bring the fragrance all the way there. By the time you react, it's time for selling apples and pine trees fragrance.
Right. Then you have a warehouse of pumpkin candles. No one wants them.
Exactly. So we're able to react. We're able to have access to better quality raw materials such as soybean wax, right? China does not produce wax from soybean. They import from the US. So all of those things would have been more timely and costly anyway. So on balance, we're not only able to turn the company to become more efficient, we're able to raise our retail because of the higher quality and the better experience. So in the end, we have learned that sometimes, manufacturing control is one of the most important things for consumers driven product. I always say that's one of the reasons Tesla was so successful. If they have not started understand manufacturing and they outsource that part, I don't think it's easy for them to really trust a company outside of their control to make innovations, to make improvement. Every day they can test something, and the design team and the manufacturing team and the procurement team, technology team, they're all integrated together. It's a very natural way of collaboration versus having to outsource things and trying to bring them back. So I do see the value of manufacturing as a way of answering a lot of the problems, including a more inclusive economy, because a lot of the manufacturing would be able to hire people that maybe not wanting to have a job in front of a computer, or a service job. Mm-hmm. They want something that they can touch and feel, and they want to feel proud of that livelihood. What's wrong with that, So I am a big believer of innovative manufacturing having a role for education purposes, because of all the jobs still need a lot of training. Why not having high schoolers decide to go to a vocational school versus just a liberal art education in a university? What do they do with all the writings and all the, histories? Why can't they learn a trade, a profession, and make good money out of it?
I think things are going to go back that way. I really think we're going to start seeing education reinvented. That's the good thing from this year is everyone started questioning how we do things. And
exactly.
So I have a question if I could jump in. So what you mentioned Yankee Candle, which I now know I'll let you tell the story, but related to. So were you the first scented candles?
No.
On the market? I'm confused. There was something you said you were the first.
We were the first in Asia.
Okay.
To make fragrance candle, because fragrance industry, as you know, started in Europe, right? If you remember how perfumes are made, they're actually chemistry. They're not what everybody just think it's essential oils being mixed. There is a science to it to capture those notes, and there is molecules that needs to be brought in to stabilize the very fragile molecules of fragrant flower essential oils. So for that reason, it's an art and it's a technology that has really developed in Europe, and obviously here in the US, we have a very robust fragrance and flavor industry. Flavor, as you can imagine, is what we add to, product like food, right? That's why it's called flavor. So anytime when you have seasoning or shortbread, there's fruit flavors. So companies that produce fine fragrance also most likely produce flavors. So that's why in Asia, particularly in China, when we started making candles, they don't have that very developed industry. They have somewhat of a flavor industry, but not the fragrance industry as developed as it is here. So it's very hard for me to even know who to work with if I want to mix vanilla with lavender. That's what I want to do. I want to really break the barriers, and I want to mix rose with lychee so that it's not so stuffy and powdery. So these are the kind of that you need to go work with a fragrance house, with a chemist who understand your requirement, who can play with components, and who can basically compose a fragrance for you. And because it's a candle fragrance, we need to go through a cold throw test, which is just your nose. And then you need to burn them to see if the same quality you're looking for can continue when it's hot.
There's a picture in your book where it's funny because you think of candles just as this home thing. I never think of like, how are they tested or made? And there's a picture of these like lab workers with white coats with a glass case, and they are staring intently at the burn rate of all these candles. And I'm thinking, my God, it is a science. I never really thought about it.
Well, those are for stability. And we try to make sure that your home has a lot of draft, right? If you have a vent for your air conditioning and you happen to have a candle maybe 2 feet, 3 feet away, that draft come down will blow wind on the flame so that even without you trying, half of the candle will be burned faster than the other half. So we want to make sure each candle with the wick, with the size of the wick, the size of the glass, has the most optimum burn so that it's not too big of a flame, it's not too small of a flame, which is basically going to create a wall of wax, and the flame is going to tunnel burn. So there's a lot of what I would call chemistry also between different fragrances with wax. So they all react very differently. That's why there are 5 components. There is the wick, the wax, the color also make a difference in the way things mix, the fragrance, and then the size of the vessel. So these 5 components constantly combine and have different reactions to each other, and we have to monitor them so we don't end up having a fire in the house.
Right.
The flame is too small and no one can smell anything. So we are constantly burning. That's what that's for. But we also we have those booths that is developed like a little room, like a little bathroom, and it has a way to suck the air out within 5 minutes. But that's what we use to burn candles and evaluate the hot throw, so that the 30 minutes we go in there, and it's very subjective. So we would need to have people evaluate it that they have good nose.
Many noses, different noses.
Well, they also have what's called sensibility to, like they know what they're smelling. They can tell, I can smell some apple. I smell some cedarwood. I smell some cinnamon. I smell some, nutmeg. That's one thing. And another thing is they can say from 1 to 5, I think this is a 4, 4 being very strong, almost a 5. So we need people who constantly can give us consistent feedback. And then we use them to see, what do you think about those 3 fragrances? Which one is the strongest? So we do these crazy things all the time. I think at some point, everybody was a little, so then you have to smell some coffee beans just to set the and start all over again. But it was a very interesting time, in my life, which is not small. It's a 25-year history that I was doing that.
Yeah. So Mei, when you were making the business decisions and growth, I'd love you to share 2 moments. One was a moment maybe where you didn't think this was going to work. And then the moment where you knew this was going to be big.
I thought the moment when I went to the factory and asked them to make a design candle for me, not even fragrance. At that time, we were just making beautiful candles with the exterior that looks like a ball and it looks like a stainless glass. It has all these colors, and I want to do, I remember very well, an animal print. They say, but how many pieces are you buying? I said, maybe 250 pieces. They look at me like I have 5 heads, because they say, we sell whole containers if you want to do your own design. And I said, how many pieces in a whole container? They say 40,000 units. Okay. So I want 250 pieces because I have a small business, and they say we can't work with anything less than 50,000. So I think that was a moment where I said, that's never going to happen. So that's when I started to convince my sister, and she indeed went to business to make those candles for me first. And then when I want to make the fragrant candle, I also make the rounds. And again, nobody wants to do it. So every time I feel manufacturing and supply chain has always got me the most desperate. But when I think the moment that it's going to be big is when I started to ship to Target, and the first order was close to $1 million. So that's already very big. But after 3 weeks of on shelves, the forecast for the whole chain of 800 Target store was about 3.5 million for the year 1998. And first 3 weeks into January, after we set in all the stores, I got a call from the buyer, and she's so panicking. She said, Mei, we're in big trouble. So I immediately think, some people did not receive the candles, or one of the candles blow up.
Right.
Somehow.
You think something's wrong. Someone died from a candle.
Exactly.
And then, that's where your mind goes, right? You're just
because we're in big trouble, right? And what kind of
someone ate the candle,
right. And she said we're in big trouble, and it's never good when you hear that. And she said,
right,
we are going to be out of stock because the forecast is wrong. We're selling 3 times more, and we're running out of stock in the end of February instead of end of April. So you need to go back to China and start finding a new facility so we can catch up. So that's when I realized that there's something about this candle that is not just that I like it, that somehow even people shopping at Target, who, is more fashion driven anyway, has
it was more cool. So you were like the first, let's say that you were the first cool candle then, right? Because now I remember growing up and my mom and grandma would have the country candles, right? The Yankee, that style at the time. And so would you say that you were when you came to the state, why was this so good in Target? Because it was a cool looking and nice smelling?
Yeah. And it's also the bright palette, it's very European, it's very German, a little bit Scandinavian. So it's very edgy. And it's not just one color, it's the combination of the color story. It tells a very vibrant, very young energy. And then I make the fragrances that people don't usually mix. Usually it's a straightforward vanilla, a straightforward raspberry, or straightforward, cinnamon. I twist them a little bit, right? I put vanilla with lavender. I put melon with mint. Just think about that. It was 2 fragrances, never one. And I used the name because I was living near Annapolis. I called it Chesapeake Bay Candle. It's just a very minimalist label, white band. And I feel it hit something that I was missing. Remember, I was going upstairs and see all this mundane, very, old-fashioned look. And here is a very crisp label, and the color is so vibrant and it has a very natural snowflake texture. And the fragrance, honestly, is very pleasing. It's not heavy, but it smells fresh. So I think fresh is very important. It just gives you a shot of excitement when you go to that department. And I think people get it because we also manufactured it in China. So it's not a difficult investment. It's very impulsive, as you know. Candle purchase is probably the most impulsive purchase.
And candles can be, it's funny, money I'll spend on a candle, I wouldn't spend anything else, but there's something about a candle is a little bit of indulgence. It's indulgence and it's very personal. There's something very personal about it.
Yeah. And it's also very much like a little comfort for yourself. It's almost like I deserve it. Maybe I'm not deserving a bag, but I definitely deserve a candle. And it's that kind of indulgence that people also feel they've been shopping for the whole family. What's wrong with buying a candle for themselves, So when it took off like that, I feel we hit something remarkable. Not only that it worked, but I also find that I'm with a really good partner that she got me. I'm still talking to her, my buyer, Jennifer Shook, and she just understood what I'm trying to do. And there's nothing that is so rewarding when someone really understands what you're trying to do and agree with you.
Mei, when we fast forward to today, tell us the state of the union with Chesapeake Bay.
Chesapeake Bay Candle was acquired in 2017 and by Newell Brands. Newell Brands is a conglomerate with over 50 household brands in consumer products, ranging from Yankee Candle, of course, and Cavalon and Sharpie pens. They have decided to enhance their home fragrance division, which is anchored by Yankee, and also, in addition, Woodward and Chesapeake Bay Candle. So Chesapeake Bay Candle joined some of the best brands in the candle business, and I'm certainly hopeful that they will continually grow, not only here but also where they have a very strong hold in Europe.
Oh, that's interesting. And that's what opened up some space for you to write the book. And you have a new venture as well, correct?
Absolutely. I was actually, the timing wouldn't have been so perfect when I was offered to write this book, right? I was offered to write the book late 2019. And when I was ready to write and begin to put my research together, the pandemic hit. So with my previous schedule where I travel a lot, it would have been a little bit more difficult to put, the book together. But because of COVID and not able to travel, I was really able to, organize and interview some of the people that I want to, help me recollect. So it went really well. And now during the pandemic, as if one thing is not enough, I was also very sad to see some of women-owned businesses around the world being so impacted, because a lot of the international women-owned brands in fashion and in beauty tend to be in countries where they depend on very heavily international tourists, such as Brazil, Peru. And when the pandemic hit, all these travel stopped. And basically, they really don't have a way to reach out to consumers. So I started to look at business opportunities and launched an online website called Mei. It is really to give consumers an option to shop only women-owned business. And I'm very happy to say that we now have close to 90 women-owned business from 5 continents and over 25 countries. And the quality is exactly what I want to showcase. Very high quality, a lot of sustainability, but most importantly, from women to women.
Yeah, I took a look at that and I saw some dresses I like.
Excellent. We have some beautiful print dresses from Italy. The new brand is called Connor & Blake. Very unusual, beautiful length, and just nice cotton made, in a very exotic prints. All the prints are very unique. And
it's hard to find different stuff these days because, boutiques are disappearing.
Yes.
I get so bored now with department stores and it's just the same stuff everywhere. So it was nice to see some unique offerings.
And also just to know that those designers, those women, they also have traveled the world. They have seen a lot and they come up with something that is definitely differentiated and not costing so much. I feel the retail industry has really become polarizing. One at very low prices and then at extremely high prices. Even I can't afford to buy a shoe at $1,000 a pair. I just don't feel that it's worth spending that much for. So I'm very happy to find brands, Connor & Blake, the dress I was talking to you about, is around $250 to $300.
Yeah, that's fair. For that quality, that's a fair price.
Exactly. And it's a lot of fabric because it's a maxi length and it has quite a bit of ruffles and long sleeves. We also recently introduced some interesting alternative to your famous sort of leather bags, like another Italian brand, Carmen de Sol. She decided to use jelly, the jelly kind of plastic, right, to make bags that looks very fashionable, and you don't have to worry about water on the beach or sand. And it's just a very good way to stay, clean and organized, but you don't have to break a bank to buy another $2,000 bag, which is what it costs these days from Europe. So
yeah, The stuff's great. I want to give the URL again. It's yesshemay.com.
Excellent. Yes. If you have friends that are in the business of consumer products, such as beauty, fashion, wellness, and home decor, and they are looking for partners, we would be happy to show them.
Great.
And when your book is going to be finished, I want to show it too.
Wonderful.
But I also want to encourage all the women novel or women authors to be on our side. We need to help each other.
Yeah. This is wonderful what you've done. So I'm going to give the book title one more time. It's called Burn: How Grit, Innovation, and a Dash of Luck Ignited a Multi-million-dollar Success Story. And Mei, as my final question, I'd love you to share 3 great pieces of advice.
Well, this question sometimes gave me an opportunity to talk about what I actually share with a lot of women business owners when they stop me and say, how can I scale up my business? When do you know it's the right time to start a business? And I always say a good idea is only an idea until it becomes a successful career. So I do hope that if you are thinking about starting a business or if you want to try it, don't ever stop yourself and always wait for that perfect opportunity. I think if anything, right now is a really good time when society goes through such disruptions and so much from retail to restaurant to hotel and travel. It's going through fundamental changes. There is always something waiting to be better, to make better, right? So I think just to do it and to give yourself a chance to test it, that's number one. Number 2 is I do feel trusting that the marketplace will give you the answer is important. I took my product to the first trade show I can get to, and the market gave me answers of 10 different categories of product, which one I should focus on. And I would never have get that by myself or even asking so-called friends, right? Because the market is not biased. It's not trying to do things that some of your friends trying to do. So I feel it's a very simple and extremely efficient way to test your concept. And the last thing is, I really think seeking help, finding a mentor, even as early as when you're in college or when you are in high school, is very important because the one-on-one back and forth holds you in a position of being accountable for yourself. And that kind of reflection and seeking feedbacks and seeking advice is so important for women in particular if we want to grow. And if we want to really demonstrate to the world that we want that award, we want that nomination, or we want that recognition, because nothing happens overnight and we need to build ourselves more allies.
Wonderful. Mei, thank you so much. We look forward to staying in touch, and we'll be reading the book and shopping your website.
Excellent. Thank you, Ali, for all the time. And you are very fun to talk to, and very good time for us to all think about how we as women can support each other. So good luck to your
absolutely
career and your endeavor.
Thank you, Mei. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Ali Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alibrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.